Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you to the 5th program in our UT Southwestern Science Cafe series. We're really excited about this milestone of our 5th, and we thank each of you for joining us. I'm Jenny King, and on behalf of Corey Tobian and Dr. Natalia David, I'm so pleased you're online with us tonight. For the newcomers, we have a Science Cafe every other Thursday. These are online conversations where our scientists will take you on deep dives into topics across the spectrum of science. Our format is casual, it's interactive. Our speakers are both UT Southwestern faculty members and occasional invited special guests. We like to have fun here, so we make these interactive and again, casual. Past topics have included scientific observation, brain plumbing and neurosurgery, art, mindfulness and health, and disease modeling and forecasting. We have a special program this coming Tuesday that hopefully you've already received an invitation to, and it's about UT Southwestern Texas Health Resources study that we're doing on the prevalence of COVID across North Texas. We think it's going to be pretty interesting. We also have some programs planned that will include the science of concussions and a few medical mysteries, and they're going to be good. But tonight, we're super excited that we're going to be discussing an important topic that impacts how we work, play, and live, the magic of sleep, our real fountain of youth, says Dr. David. For more information, you can always go to Science Cafe at events.utsouthwestern.edu. Before we get started, I have just a few technical points to share. As you guys probably know by now with Zoom, keep your speakers on mute unless you want to ask a question, and that'll just help with our audio clarity. If you do have a question, you can put it in the chat room, or you can just kind of raise your hand when it's time for Q&A. Be sure that you have a pen and pencil and a piece of paper handy because we have a little survey you're going to be taking, and you'll want to write some stuff down. And finally, Corey is going to be facilitating Q&A. And with that, I'd like to turn the program over to our speaker, Dr. Natalia David. Dr. David is assistant professor in the Department of Psychiatry at our Peter O'Donnell Jr. Brain Institute here at UT Southwestern. She specializes in behavioral sleep medicine and pain psychology. She will be introducing herself and then getting the cafe conversation started. Dr. David, it's all yours.
Thank you, Jenny, and thank you everyone for being here. I know it's a Thursday evening and there's lots of things that we could be doing right now, so I really appreciate you all taking an hour out of your evening to spend it with me and learning how to sleep a little bit better. Just to piggyback off of Jenny's introduction, so I've been faculty on UT Southwestern for about a year and a half, and I was trained as a health psychologist. So my primary roles at UT Southwestern, I'm a health psychologist in the Clements and Vail University hospitals, doing medical psychology there. And then I also spend a little bit of time in the outpatient psychiatry clinic, where I primarily do sleep and a little sprinkle here and there of some pain and some general mental health, garden variety type stuff. But to give you just some background on how I got into sleep. So again, I was trained as a health psychologist, and my primary focus was actually in psycho-oncology or cancer psychology. And I started working a lot with folks in cancer-related pain that grew into chronic pain, and I did a fellowship in chronic pain. And I noticed that all of my pain patients had sleep problems. And so if I was to adequately train my pain patients, I had to learn a thing or two about sleep. And that's kind of where my affinity and subspecialty in sleep has grown. And so I am super excited to tell you guys about all the stuff that I've learned about sleep and what I do in the clinic. So I'm going to share my screen with y'all so I can show you my PowerPoint. Okay, can you guys all see that?
We can see your Zoom screen, Dr. David, not your PowerPoint.
Oh, my Zoom. Okay. I'm going to try this again. So Let's try this again. Okay, share screen. I think this happened in one of the last ones too.
Corey can pull it up if it doesn't work on your end.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not, I don't see the option for sharing my PowerPoint. It's just, let's try this one portion. Screen. Share. Okay. What do you guys see now?
Your Word document?
Do you see the PowerPoint?
No.
No. Okay.
Unfortunately.
Okay.
I think
Corey, can you pull it up?
it's your outline version of the PowerPoint.
Is that what you're seeing?
Yes, it's like
Okay.
bullets 1, 2.
Zoom. Okay, I'm gonna try one more time, sharing my screen.
There's always
PowerPoint?
the funs of new technology, everybody.
Exactly.
Yes.
PowerPoint on there?
I do not see it.
Okay. I'm
But
gonna
it's a
hand it
red,
over to you,
it's a
Corey.
red background.
Yeah.
Sometimes
it's
when you
weird.
click share screen, it should give you, it sometimes will show you different options. So did
Yeah,
that pop up?
No, PowerPoint didn't pop up on there.
Okay.
Is your PowerPoint open, Dr. David?
Yep, it's open.
Do you have two screens? Two different monitors?
No. No, it's just one.
Okay, let me try and do it from mine. Give me 1 second as I just need to launch my screen. As it is giving me a second to freeze.
Do I need to stop? I should stop sharing, right? There you go.
Yeah. Just 1 second.
Can you minimize the Zoom call maybe
Like that?
and share the screen and minimize it?
Let's try that. Share screen. Share. Anything now?
No.
No.
No?
I am happy to share my screen. Just give me 1 second.
Okay.
As I am also, unfortunately, running into one little issue as I go to do this. I might have too many PowerPoints.
I think that means that our computers are tired, just like sometimes we people get tired.
Absolutely.
They've been working overtime for us with all these Zoom calls that we've been having to do.
Give me 1 second as mine is loading as we speak. The slideshow.
Sorry, guys. Thanks for your patience.
Dr. David, do you want to just start talking without your PowerPoint? I mean, you can see it on your
Sure.
screen.
Sure. Well, the first thing I always like to get to do is get to know my audience. So this is a good time to do a really, really quick poll. So Corey, are you running the polls?
I just launched your first poll.
Okay, awesome. So just so I know who I'm talking to, here's 2 questions that you guys can answer in real time. I currently have a sleep disorder or have difficulty sleeping. And number 2 is I'm worried about the long-term health consequences of sleep loss. Let's see what we get here. All right. Okay, great. So about 57% of you guys have had some experience with sleep loss, sleep disorders, and 43%. I'm actually really surprised. That's a really high number. But even if you don't have sleep problems or difficulty sleeping, there's still a lot that you'll learn in this presentation. And with sleep hygiene tips and strategies in general, they just provide a buffer for going, any instance in the future where you might have a sleep problem or insomnia. And so you will still learn a thing or two. Okay, are we sharing the screen yet?
Everyone should be able to see my screen. Can everyone see my PowerPoint? Great.
Yep.
Yes, next slide.
Am I going to be able to control this?
No, I will advance for you, Dr. David.
Okay, all right, you can go ahead and go to the slideshow.
It should be playing.
Oh.
Can you not see it, Dr. David?
I still see it on the notes section. Oh, there we go. Never mind.
Let me try it again.
There we go.
Got it? Okay.
Yep. Okay. You can go ahead and click through these. So I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of background. Sleep medicine, the first book on sleep medicine was actually written in the late or early 1800s, 1834. And so we've been looking at sleep as a science since then. But the behavioral and psychological aspects of sleep or behavioral sleep medicine is relatively new. The American Academy of Sleep Medicine was founded in 1975. So even then, that's not that old. And the behavioral sleep medicine subspecialty was formed in 2000. And so that is pretty relatively new, only about 20 years old. And within the BSM subspecialty, we have the Board of Behavioral Sleep Medicine, Society of Behavioral Sleep Medicine. So we are a multidisciplinary team. I work very closely with the sleep medicine physicians, which include the pulmonologists, neurologists, and all the techs. We have psychology and psychiatry on board. And just to give you a little bit idea of what we do in psychology for sleep disorders, we're really well known for working with patients with insomnia, but we don't just do insomnia. We do a lot of other things too. Hypersomnia, which is sleeping too much, parasomnias, those are behavioral issues in sleep, such as sleep walking, sleep talking, acting out in dreams, that kind of thing. Circadian rhythm disorders, nightmares, bedwetting, and then a couple of things on here that we incorporate as our behavioral interventions into sleep and sleep modification or sleep retraining. Okay, next slide. All right, so a couple of questions I hope to answer for you all here. The three biggest questions I get, one of them is, why do we sleep? And so this is a great question. And what is sleep? And that's another thing. So we have a bunch of theories about why we sleep and what sleep is, but it's really not that well understood yet. And so we do know that all animals sleep. It's, into some capacity, animals have different needs of sleep, just like every single human does, but it's really not that well understood, and we're still doing a lot of research. And in fact, UT Southwestern has been pumping out some really good research around sleep over the last couple of years. So this is from the textbook of sleep medicine in 1834, and at that time, sleep was described as an intermediate state between wakefulness and death. And it's kind of interesting to look at that definition and think about what we know and what we don't know about sleep. Can you hit, Corey, go ahead. Okay, great. So historically, we have a couple of theories. The vascular theory says that we go about our day, and as we're upright animals, and the blood slowly drains from the brain as the day goes on, and eventually you fall asleep. And the hypnotoxin theory stated that, well, we must accumulate toxins in our brain throughout the day, which subdues us at night. And even though that was, both of these theories were kind of way off in left field, what we've started to discover is that this hypnotoxin theory is actually not too far from the truth. And so currently we have these theories, one of them being survival, right? So sleep is essential for human life, and if we don't sleep, unfortunately, we die. And you know, it has a it has obviously some evolutionarily adaptive functions. Our ancestors put themselves at risk for predation, and so sleep was so important that they even were willing to expose themselves and be vulnerable. Restoration theory states that, you know, we do a lot of cellular repair in parts of our stages of sleep and deep sleep. Specific hormones and different neurotransmitters are released in different parts of or different stages of sleep. Metabolic health, this is also really important. So we know that metabolism of the body and the brain is really important, brain health in general. So just like we have a lymphatic system in our body that helps kind of clear out toxins, our lymph system, or we have a glymphatic system in our brain that does the same thing and helps clear out toxins in the brain. And so essentially in the night, if we're getting restful sleep or restorative sleep, our brains are taking out the trash, right? We go about our days learning a lot, and we don't actually need all that stuff. So we do a lot of synapse pruning. You know, our brains get rid of all the stuff that we don't need, and it makes room for new learning the next day. And this is also really important for learning and memory consolidation. Memory is often the first complaint I hear from patients who have sleep difficulties. And emotional regulation. I don't think that this theory gets enough weight, but our dreaming stages of sleep, or our REM stage, which is where we do most of our dreaming, has a perfect environment to process some of those stressful events, the traumas, the depression, the mental illness, and all of that we encounter throughout our entire day. So it's a type of natural therapy or natural catharsis that we do during the night. And our emotional brain is actually really, really active, and that's why our dreams are really kind of funky and odd sometimes. Okay. All right, another big question. How much sleep do we need? Well, what we know is that sleep is unique to each individual. So everybody has a sleep fingerprint, I guess you could say. But it really does depend on a number of factors. And these factors could be as acute as how you slept the night before, or it could be as chronic as how much sleep loss you've had over time. We know that genetics plays a big role in this. We actually have what we call clock genes all over our entire body and in many organ systems that function and regulate our sleep and circadian rhythm. And so we do have a genetic predisposition. You hear this a lot with, I'm a night owl, or I'm a morning lark, or I'm a long sleeper or a short sleeper, people that don't need that much sleep and can function adequately on just a few hours. Age, this is another big one. So our sleep definitely changes as we age. Infants sleep 16 hours a day, and as adults, we only sleep 7 or 8 hours a day. And even as we get older, into older age, our sleep needs don't necessarily change, but our sleep does change, and I'll talk a little bit about that in just a minute. Gender, unfortunately for men, as we age, they get a little bit less restorative or deep sleep. Your health and psychiatric comorbidities also impact your sleep. And also culture. You know, sleep is a behavior. It's complex, but it is a behavior, and it's something that we learn over time. And so in infancy, your parents are teaching you how to sleep, right? They're reinforcing sleep. And so how they model sleep, how they, you know, they pick you up in the middle of the night and coddle you or all that stuff, it all has an impact eventually accumulatively on our sleep functioning. If you're an anxious child, if you grow up in an anxious household, that's going to have a huge impact on sleep functioning too, as an adult. Okay, next one. So I mentioned that our sleep needs change as we age. This is just a cute little graphic that you can look at to see the different developmental periods of time and how our sleep varies and changes. And of course, you know, we're in the age of technology, and that's changed drastically our sleep functioning for a lot of us. And especially, there's a lot of research right now on the impacts of technology in adolescence and what that does on the chronic use of late night technology. Okay, go ahead. Okay, so a little bit more about how much sleep we need. So we can look at it from two perspectives: sufficient versus insufficient sleep. So sufficient sleep is on those days where you wake up feeling good and refreshed and have a spontaneous awakening, maybe on the weekends. And that typically tends to be around 7 to 9 hours. Insufficient sleep is less than 7 hours. And this is sleep that's not adequate in duration or quality. And I get a question all the time that quality is more important than quantity. Yes, that's in general rule of thumb of life. Quantity or quality is definitely more important than quality or quantity. But if we can get both of it, why not? Can you go to the next bullet? Great. So if you are doing a little self-assessment on your sleep and what your sleep looks like, these are the quality indicators that we use to measure whether or not we're getting quality sleep. So we definitely want to be sleeping when 85% of our total time in bed, right? If we're having a lot of nighttime awakenings, a lot of arousals, tossing and turning, that's definitely going to disrupt the quality of your sleep. But I will say that, you know, having these kind of micro arousals or micro awakenings where you may turn over and get comfortable, or it's too cold, or it's too hot, or your dog jumps on the bed, or you know, something like that. That's really, really normal. And that happens throughout the entire night for even normal sleepers. But when those arousals are prolonged or for more than 15 minutes, or you have difficulty going back to sleep, that's when we have a lot more concern. Next slide, please. Okay, so why do we even care about sleep and sleep functioning? Well, it's a growing public health concern, and the statistics show us that chronic sleep deprivation, or anything less than 7 hours, is what the CDC calls it, has been a growing concern. So in 2001, the statistics were that only about 15% of the U.S. population was chronically sleep deprived. In 2014, that jumped from 35 to 44%. There's the CDC, now the numbers are around 39%, so almost 40%. There's some studies that have those numbers at even higher. And at this rate, we can project that in 2050, 65 to 70% of our US population will be chronically sleep deprived. And this is really important because this equals more health and psychiatric issues, right? And that's going to equal more healthcare costs. So the economic burden for healthcare costs goes way up. There's more on-the-job accidents, or like absenteeism, calling into work. You know, that takes a toll on the economy too. There's more on-the-job accidents. Heavy machinery workers, pilots, firemen, even doctors are more likely to make mistakes when they're chronically sleep deprived. And so this really does become a challenge for us. And this little graphic from the CDC is, oh, can you go back? Is just showing how densely populated some of these areas are with regard to sleep deprivation. I don't know what they're doing over there in Georgia, but they're really sleep deprived over there. And then I always like to point out that if you go over to Nevada and you see that little tip down there, there we go. That little tip down there, that's where Las Vegas is. That's my hometown. I'm from Las Vegas, and that's a city that never sleeps. So that's very indicative of Las Vegas lifestyle. All right, now you can go to the next one. Okay, a little bit more on how much sleep we need, and you know, too much of a good thing is not always a good thing. It can be bad. So you can see this graph here that shows there was a real seminal study in Great Britain that looked at about 21,000 twin pairs in a Finnish cohort study. And they looked at people's health and how much they were sleeping over a long period of time. And what they found was that 7 hours was what we know is 7 hours is adequate for our brains and our bodies to do what it needs to do. So 7 hours is really optimal for overall well-being. When you get a little bit more than 7 hours, when you're 8 or 9 hours, and I know 8's what we hear in the media a lot, you can see that your risk for mortality goes way up. The same as if you're not sleeping enough. If you're sleeping 6 or 5 hours, your risk for mortality goes way, way up. And so we know that chronic sleep deprivation and even sleeping too much, right, that can lead to some significant health concerns, cardiovascular concerns. And I know I'm talking a lot about sleep deprivation, but we have other sleep disorders too, like sleep apnea and restless leg syndrome and other things like that, that we can have sleep deprivation secondary to some of those other sleep disorders. And again, that's going to wreak havoc on your health. Obesity, type 2 diabetes, memory problems, cognitive functioning, reproduction, digestive system, all of it. It all becomes affected by how much you're sleeping or not sleeping. All right, next one. Okay, so really quickly, just a little kind of the nuts and bolts of sleep. So we have two processes. Can you go ahead and click the next button? So process, go ahead and do it again. Process S, this is our sleep load. And so we have what we call this homeostatic sleep drive, or sleep pressure, I like to call it, that builds up during the day. And when we have enough sleep pressure built up during the day, we can fall asleep. If we don't have enough sleep pressure built up during the day, it's going to be harder and harder to fall asleep. And then we have another process. You go ahead and click twice, Corey, thank you. Process C, or this is for our circadian processes. These are the signals that keep us awake during the day. And you can see in this little graphic here that they kind of compete with one another a little bit. You know, as the day goes on, your sleep pressure builds, but your alerting signals get higher because you need to stay awake during the day. And then eventually, sleep overrides alertness, and then you're able to fall asleep. Next slide, please. All right, so sleep stages. We have non-REM and REM sleep. So REM sleep is considered our dreaming stage, right? I mentioned that before. And then we have non-REM sleep, which is categorized as these 3 different stages. This is not a real nice graph that shows how we move and cycle through some of these stages, but it does show you that REM gets a little bit longer as the night goes on, and so a lot of folks remember waking up from a dream, and they tend to remember the dreams in the later parts of the morning or earlier parts of the morning. And then slow wave sleep, or what we call deep sleep, starts to decrease as the night goes on. And that's where we do our real restorative sleep and those good processes and functions that we need. So what causes sleep loss? So we can think about this as being in 3 different categories of health, personal, and occupational. If you can click. Health, we have some primary and secondary sleep disorders, right? So what I just mentioned about if someone has sleep apnea or obstructive sleep apnea, which is not getting enough oxygen at night, waking up kind of gasping for air, well, you can imagine that there's going to be some arousals and some sleep loss. And so we would call that secondary sleep loss or insomnia. And then other health issues that are going to keep you awake and impact your sleep, just like chronic pain. Personal issues like family or societal obligations. We all have hobbies. We have dinner parties. We like to go to concerts, that kind of thing. Usually, I know that's all been kind of put to a hold recently because of COVID. Technology, I've mentioned, and so we call these things social jet lag. We get tired, we try to recover or make up for sleep the next day or over the next couple of days because we've engaged in, late night activities. And then occupational, and this being for those workers, we have a 24-hour society. And so firemen, doctors, nurses, casino workers, they all have to work during the night. And so that really does go against what our natural circadian rhythm does, which is sleep at night, awake during the day. And also people have multiple jobs, right? So they're working a lot of hours during the day between jobs or working from home. I know a lot of us at UT Southwestern are really kind of prey to that too, that we take our work home with us, or we can't sleep at night, so we open the laptop up and we do a little bit of work, and that's just gonna, I think, mess up our sleep a little bit more. Next slide. All right, so what happens when we sleep? Our brain is actually really, really active when we sleep. So I mentioned before about the hypnotoxin theory and how our brain is kind of clearing out some toxins during the day. So our real prominent researchers here at UT Southwestern, Dr. Yanagisawa, Takahashi, and Liu, they came up with this, they found these SNPs, or dephosphorylation sleep need index phosphoproteins. And basically what this is that during the course of the day, we have these phosphoproteins that accumulate and get phosphorylated. And if they accumulate too much, or with chronic sleep deprivation, we get hyperphosphorylation of some of those proteins. And that leads to neurodegenerative disease, Alzheimer's, dementia, Lewy body disease, and that kind of thing. And so this becomes really, really important for our aging brains and our aging process. Consolidating memories. We've talked a little bit about how our brain is learning and consolidating what we've learned throughout the day, and then taking out the trash of what we don't need. And creativity and insight is actually enhanced. Sometimes you'll hear about, famous artists or entrepreneurs who keep notebooks by their bedside because they have their most brilliant thoughts in the middle of the night or right when they're about to go to sleep. I've actually experienced this, and I do the same thing. The creative parts of our brain get enhanced, and again, our emotional brains are really active during the night. And we have this thing called lucid dreaming too, which is actually becoming kind of hip and popular. But there was a study done that looked at how our brain makes connections or inferences between the data that we've learned and that data that maybe is in memory or in our subconscious. And it actually revealed that if with adequate sleep versus people who had not had adequate sleep, your ability to make those judgments, those inferences, and that abstract connections went up way higher, about 50% higher than the people who had not had adequate sleep. And processing information continues, especially in the light stages of sleep. So if you're one of those people who likes to sleep with the TV on or the radio on or listening to stories when you go to bed, that doesn't actually give your brain the rest that it really needs, because it continues to pick up on the sound and process the information that it hears. Next slide, please. So this is a really busy slide. I don't intend to bother you guys with all of this, but this is just a really nice comprehensive list of all of the different things that happen to us cognitively when we have chronic sleep loss, and I'll just kind of touch on a few of them on the next slide. So visual spatial perception. So we definitely have some changes in the brain with chronic sleep deprivation. Our depth perception can become altered. Then you have safety issues, right? You have risk for falling down the stairs, and proprioception, which is where your body knows where it is in time and space. That can also be altered, and that throws us off balance. This is really important for older folks who already have maybe some balance or gait issues, and they are then sedated on medications, and they wake up in the middle of the night, the room is dark, and they stumble and they fall and they hurt themselves pretty bad. So this can be a big safety concern too. Occipital cortex is affected. That is our visual functioning, auditory processing. This becomes affected particularly with sound discrimination. So that becomes harder when we're sleep deprived. Sensory and tactile changes. So this was really important for my pain patients because your pain threshold goes way down when you're sleep deprived. And so you're going to have a lot more pain when you're not getting adequate sleep. And then social, emotional functioning too. So again, that emotional part, emotional regulation theory or functions of sleep. We're just not nice people when we're not sleeping well. We're irritable. We tend to isolate ourselves, or people don't want to be around us. Our interpersonal functioning and relationships can have strain on them because of that. And then over time, people just stop inviting you out places because you've refused because you are sleep deprived and too tired and don't want to do anything. And so your social life can be significantly impacted too. And I don't say a lot in this presentation about mental health, but we do know that there are a lot of psychiatric illnesses that sleep is a symptom of those psychiatric illnesses, and can also be a trigger, right? Sleep loss can be a trigger for some of those things. And we know depressed folks, they suffer from insomnia. About 90% of people with depression report insomnia at some point. And medications that you take for psychiatric illnesses too can alter sleep. So another important aspect to think about. All right, next slide. Okay, so I've talked a little bit about just kind of the basic nuts and bolts of sleep and why we sleep and how much sleep we need. And so now this is the fun part. I guess you guys can all take part in this. So I created a sleep profile quiz. This one is an adapted 6-question quiz that you can take. And can you go to the next slide, Corey? Yeah. So on the poll, you'll want to sum up your answers. This is like a mini self-assessment, and then you can see how you're sleeping at the end of the quiz based on what your answers are. So the first answers, you can score it as a 2. The middle answer, you can score it as a 1. And if you are choosing answer number 3 or the last answer, you can score it as a 0. So let's go ahead and launch that poll. All right, the first one. The hour I go to bed at night. Let's see. Okay, so about 25% of you guys are stating that your sleep varies wildly. About 43% saying that it's pretty okay, and 33% say that it rarely varies. Good, awesome. So we know that the timing of bed is important. Consistency in your sleep and wake time is one of the first strategies that I will tell patients and make sure that we work on, is maintaining a consistent routine as far as bedtime and wake times go. We're on our circadian rhythm, or a biological sleep clock, functions on roughly a 24-hour period, just like our day does. And the earth and the world, it all functions on 24-hour period. So that never changes. So if our sleep is variable and we're waking up and going to bed at different times all the time, it just throws the natural rhythms of our biology off. Okay, next one. How many hours per night do you usually sleep? Seven to 9 hours is the winner. That's awesome. I'm 56% of you guys are getting really adequate amounts of sleep. That's awesome. About 24% of y'all are getting less than 7 hours of sleep, or always more than 9. I guess on those two sides of the spectrum, right? And so like we talked about before, we know that how much sleep we get impacts our overall health and well-being. So for those of you who are not getting enough sleep or getting too much sleep, that might be something you want to look at. For those of you guys in the middle, about 20% of you said that you get less than 7 hours during the week, but you make up for it on the weekends. This is what we call recovery sleep. That's pretty normal. Normal sleepers tend to do that. However, when you have sleep issues or sleep problems, we want to avoid doing that, and having consistency even on the weekends is your best bet. All right, let's go to the next one. When do you power down? I knew it. Almost 60% of you guys fall asleep watching TV or scanning your phone or tablet. Shame on you. I'm just kidding. This is a really bad habit, and then unfortunately it's part of or built into our culture now with technology, and it can not only interrupt our sleep because of the light we're getting, but it's also arousing. So especially in today's day and age where, there's lots of stuff going on in the news, watching news shows or the news report, 11 o'clock news at night, those are really stimulating activities. And so, a lot of the phones and technology that we have these days come with built-in nighttime modes. If you have old technology, you might have to learn how to turn it to nighttime mode. And so the blue light becomes less of a concern. It's more of the stimulation, right? And the conditioning that you're doing before bed. And also that you shouldn't be doing things in bed, other activities other than 3 things, I say, which is sleep, sex, and relaxation. 3 things you're allowed to do in bed. We won't get into all the nuts and bolts of why that happens or why that's a tip and strategy, but it's important to keep your bed sacred for sleep. Next one, substances such as alcohol, prescription sleep medication, or over-the-counter meds to go to sleep. Wow, great. 81% of you guys don't ever usually rely on meds. That's great. That's where we want to be. 12% say yes pretty much every night. So the model that we like to use with regards to sleep medications is thinking about sleep deprivation or acute sleep loss, like getting an infection and taking antibiotics, right? You get an infection, you take antibiotics, it clears up, you stop taking the antibiotics. That's kind of the model that we want to use, or we try to use when prescribing sleep hypnotics, that chronic use of sleep hypnotics can mess up your sleep architecture, the stages that we looked at earlier, over time, not to mention dependency and tolerance, and then we need more and more, and so that it becomes a little bit of an issue. And part of what I do in my clinic is taper patients off sleep meds and get them to function on natural sleep a little bit more. All right, next one. How tired or sleepy do you feel throughout the day? Okay, so pretty typical, falls right in the middle sometimes, but mostly after a bad night's sleep. So that's really typical. And again, like I said, normal sleepers will recover the next day. They'll go to bed a little earlier, you'll feel tired, or you'll sleep harder or longer. And so your energy levels throughout the day definitely do your sleep is definitely going to impact that. And also other sleep disorders will impact that as well, like sleep apnea. All right, next one. How does sleep impact your mind? Okay, the results are in, so good. 60% of you said that you can notice changes in your cognition after a poor night's sleep, but you usually bounce back after that, or maybe after a cup or two of coffee. But that's good, that's what we want to be, right? So these changes that occur after an acute sleep loss or a bad night of sleep is not permanent. Now that becomes a problem when we have chronic sleep deprivation, and the accumulative effects of our brain functioning and can be irreversible. So that's something that we want to definitely pay attention to. All right, that was it for our poll, wasn't it? It was. All right, so if you guys summed up your scores, whatever they were throughout the assessment, you can look on the slide here. Can you get rid of that poll? Minimize it. So you can see the scores here. If you got 0 to 2, 3 to 8, or 9 to 12, it kind of tells you which categories you're in. And so that was just a fun little assessment. It's just for fun. The scoring system is arbitrary, and we just made it up. And so I told you we derived this from a 10-question quiz that we had developed for the Peter O'Donnell Brain Institute a while ago. And so if anybody's interested in having that full quiz, then they can, we can email that to you. Corey can send that out to all the participants. And it also gives you a nice little profile of what those super sleeper, or if your sleep needs a little bit of sprucing up, and tips and strategies along with that. So when to see a sleep professional? Well, all of the things that we've talked about today, if you're concerned about any of those things, then I would definitely say to talk to your doctor about it. Usually your primary care physician is the go-to person, right? They're the liaison to then saying, okay, we need to send you to a specialist. So either that's a sleep physician or a sleep psychologist like myself. And there's actually not a lot of us. There's only 5 behavioral sleep medicine providers in Texas. And in the entire country, there's only about 120 or so of us. And so we are a rare but very, very important part of sleep medicine. And so if your family or friends have expressed concerns about your sleep, there was a survey that was done that indicated that people didn't even know they were not sleeping well until they started diving a little bit more into it with specialty providers, and it ended up being that they actually had sleep disorders that had been untreated and undiagnosed for a really long period of time. And so definitely raise questions if you have them. Ask your sleep doctors. And in the Sleep and Breathing Disorders Clinic at UT Southwestern, I work with such great colleagues there, and they're wonderful to work with. And so they're always a great resource as well. And I think, can you go to the next one? I think that sums it up. So I want to thank you all so much for being here again with me on this Thursday evening and talking about sleep and sleep functioning, since it's my passion. If I will open it up for any questions.
Thank you, Dr. David. That was fantastic. And thank you for everyone who's been posting questions. I will start calling on you. When I do call on you, please feel free to unmute yourself and turn your video on and ask Dr. David your question. We are going to go a couple minutes over just because we had a little bit of a technology problem at the beginning. So our first question comes from David Tyler. Do you have a question for Dr. Tyler or Dr. David? That was hard to say.
Hello, this is Dave Tyler. I asked several questions during the talk, but let's see. I'll have to go back to the front and see my first one. You might want to go around me for a second, just in the interest of time.
If you have one, David, that you'd like to ask, that's just in your mind, it doesn't have to be the first one you posted.
I thought it was an excellent presentation, by the way, and on a topic that's incredibly important for everybody. And let me gather my thoughts, and I'll come back to you with a question.
All right, sounds great. Our next question comes from Zoe. Zoe, you had a question for Dr. David?
Zoe, are you there? I think that's my niece. It might be my niece.
Oh, it's your okay. It's not very sweet of her. Well, if not, I'll move on.
Okay.
We have a question from Erin Yeager. Erin Yeager, you had a question for Dr. David?
Yeah, so you spoke a bit about 7 to 9 hours of continuous sleep. And again, thank you for your presentation. Does this sleep need to be continuous, or could you do a sleep cycle, wake up, and then have another sleep cycle?
So most people will generally have a small arousal when they are going through their sleep cycles. So I didn't mention that in a typical night of sleep or normal sleep, sleep cycles are generally 90 minutes long, and we'll cycle through that about 4 or 5 times during the night. So when we cycle through and we come back around to the wakeful stage, that's when most people will get up. You're a lot more aware of your body sensations, your discomforts, the temperature, I have to use the bathroom, and that kind of thing. And so those micro awakenings are really normal because that's how we're moving through our sleep cycles. But if you find yourself spending too much time awake and not being able to fall back asleep, that's going to be the most disruptive to your sleep. So we want that 7, to 8 or 9 hours, and with those micro awakenings, I don't even count those as awakenings when I'm working with patients. And so unless it's more than 15 to 20 minutes long. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks. And I think I was talking about, sleeping early in the evening and then, waking up for maybe a couple hours in the middle of the night and then going back, from like 2 to 7 in the morning.
Yeah, that kind of chunky kind of block of sleep. We definitely want more. So our sleep, as we move through those sleep cycles, they change a little bit, and that's kind of where we need some continuous sleep, because your REM cycle increases, slow wave sleep or deep sleep decreases a little bit, but we want that to be continuous throughout the night rather than broken up in chunks.
Thank you. That's a great question. Moving on, our next question is from Stephen Seawaster. Stephen, you had a question for Dr. David?
Actually, I think she answered my question, talking about directing us to sleep assessment professionals. And you said there weren't many of them, and that was really kind of my question because it's been hard to find someone to go to.
Yeah, it's a toughie, this one, to find some good sleep professionals. I mean, our sleep physicians are excellent, but the behavioral sleep medicine providers or sleep psychologists, they're a rarity. So if you can find a good one, then you're golden.
Thank you.
And you're staring at one, so there you go.
Great. Our next question, Jeff Kittner, you had a question for Dr. David?
Yeah, thanks, Corey. Thanks, Dr. David. It's a great presentation. What's the significance of our dreams, and then how do we better remember our dreams?
Oh, I knew I was going to get a dream question. So there's lots of dream theories, right? We could go back to Freudian times and dream analysis and things like that. And I had mentioned earlier about that our emotional parts of the brain are really active, and sleep allows us to make those kinds of subconscious connections or inferences and abstract thinking and creativity enhances. So dreams are a way for us to process both traumas and stress and sadness and all those emotions that we feel during the day. So that's one function of dreams. And another function of dream is also to enhance creativity. And sometimes they just don't make any sense at all. Our emotional parts of the brain are doing lots of stuff up there. And the strategy that I use to remember my dreams is keeping a dream journal and writing it down right when you wake up and all the details that you can remember. And sometimes you'll go throughout your day and then you'll think of something and it'll be like, oh yeah, I remember that about my dream. We actually use this when we're treating nightmares. So there are behavioral and psychological interventions for that. Keeping a dream journal, reprocessing through some of those dreams, what they mean, their significance, and tying it into like real life events is how we approach that sort of treatment.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Just a reminder, if we do not get to your question this evening, we will be sending out a survey as well as a link to the YouTube. And please feel free to email us at publicaffairs@utsouthwestern.edu, and we will definitely get your questions to Dr. David. Our next question is from Ashley. Ashley Barraza, you had a question for Dr. David?
Yes, what are your thoughts on sleep tracking apps? Are they good? Is there any value or benefit, and do you have any recommendations for one?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So Fitbits, Apple Watches, even apps on your phone now can be used to track sleep. And so two things I'll say about that is, for some people, if you're wondering how your sleep is measuring up, then it might be some good data for you to eventually take back to your doctor and be like, look, this is kind of crappy. I need more help with this. If you're an anxious person in general and you just have a little bit more of an anxious personality style, I would probably advise against that. We know that these instruments are only about 60% to 70% accurate based on if you went into the sleep clinic for a sleep study and you did a polysomnography. So with polysomnography, that's the instrument they use to measure your sleep. And so Fitbits and Apple Watches, they have small devices and things in there that kind of act in a similar way, and we'll give you some data. I use a sleep diary, which is your perception of sleep. And I think that that's really important because regardless of what your Fitbit says or your CPAP compliance report says, your perception of how you slept is actually really important, because we get to see people who say, I didn't sleep a wink last night. And they have nothing on their sleep diary. And sometimes when we measure that up to objective data, we actually see that they're sleeping a lot. And so the perception of sleep becomes skewed.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Ron Adams. Ron Adams, you have a question for Dr. David? If Ron is still on. Okay, moving on. Rudy Rodriguez, do you have a question for Dr. David?
Yeah, so I know we're talking about sleep, but this question is about waking up. Is it worth setting my alarm clock a little earlier than I need to so I can hit the snooze button? Or is it better off ignoring the snooze and just getting up when my alarm goes off?
So what's the function of hitting snooze? Is it just to get it creep in those extra few minutes of sleep?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably better if you gave yourself just those couple of extra minutes and woke up and got out of bed when you needed to, instead of forcing yourself to wake up to an alarm a couple of minutes early to kind of prep for that. but I will say I'm a snoozer. I hit the snooze button a lot. And so it's not going to have a big impact on your sleep, but it just kind of points to the fact that we want as natural sleep as we can get. So if you are able to like jump out of bed when your alarm goes off and start your day, then that's awesome. So that's probably better than hitting the snooze button, which I do.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I think I hit it 3 times this morning. It's not good. Moving on, we have Andy Donaldson. You have a question for Dr. David? Let's see. Okay. Nellie, you have a question for Dr. David?
Okay, yeah, I was trying to unmute. What is the cause of sleepwalking?
So that's what we call a class of sleep disorders, which is a parasomnia. It's like a behavioral related issue with sleep. And
She's talking.
Go ahead.
No, he's talking.
So, you know, the function of that, I'm not actually quite sure of what the function of that is. There are parts of our brain that stay active when they're not supposed to be. So when we dream, our body kind of gets really stiff, and our muscles get really rigid. And the idea of that is so we don't act out our dreams. So for folks who have a disruption in that process, they are more likely to get up and walk and get up and eat and, you know, talk in their sleep or have conversations or just do some really kind of weird things and act out their dreams. Sleepwalking is another function of that. Some medications also can lead to these kind of sleep blackouts where people have cleaned their whole entire house before and had no recollection of it, and it was all during sleep. So it's a real interesting class of sleep disorders. It can be dangerous though. So I know that especially for children, there's safety issues. For the elderly, there's safety issues, wandering outside the house. So there is some strategies and interventions with regard to safety by putting alarms on the doors or, you know, this sounds kind of weird, but obstruction, like, you know, things that are going to obstruct you from being able to move too far if you're walking. These are all strategies also used with children and peds.
Great, thank you. David, Tyler, I wanted to go back to you in case you were asked your question.
Yes, thank you for coming back to me. You know, one of the graphics that we looked at talked about the amount of sleep by age group. And I noticed that the highest age classification was 18 years old plus. And I really feel like when folks get older than that, maybe there would be some difference from somebody in their early 20s. Is that not what the science is saying?
Yeah, so in adulthood, our need for sleep doesn't actually change. So we need that 7 to 8 hours of sleep. But sleep changes as we age. And so as we get older, we have more health problems. We have smaller bladders or whatever. We wake up to use the bathroom. We're on more medications typically as we get older. We have aches and pains, that kind of thing. There are going to be changes in sleep functioning based on other health morbidities as we age. And so that's going to cause some disruption in sleep. But what we know also is that in general, the way we move through our sleep cycles actually changes too. Men spend a lot less time in deep sleep, and women spend a lot more time in deep sleep. And there's a theory about that, as you know, in women's prime mothering developmental periods, that they sleep a lot less and they make up for that as they age, and so they actually sleep much deeper. And so unfortunately for men, as they get older, they do tend to get a little less restorative sleep. But the need for sleep doesn't change. And so a lot of times older folks will compensate for that by taking daytime naps.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
We have time for one more question. Again, if we did not get to your question, please email us at publicaffairs@utsouthwestern.edu, and we will include that in the email we send you tomorrow morning. But our last question comes from Grace Barber. You had a question about some of your students?
Well, I'm a high school teacher, and I always start out the year, I have 9th graders, and I talk to them about how you're going to be successful, and I always talk to them. They say you need to get 8 to 9 hours of sleep at least, and they're always just stunned. And I actually talked to them about what you said about memory consolidation, all that kind of stuff. But I do a little basic sleep hygiene stuff with them, like put your phone in a different room and stuff. Is there anything else specially that you would recommend for me to recommend to teenagers? And Corey, thank you for calling on me.
Yeah, that's a good question. So this kind of goes to our sleep technology hygiene, right? So I believe personally and professionally that asking people to limit their use of technology in the nighttime it's sort of far-fetched, right? Especially with adolescents. You know, if you can not use any electronics before, you know, an hour before bed, awesome. But for a teenager, I think that that's going to be the hardest task of all. So, you know, then we make accommodations. You know, put your screen down low, don't do anything really stimulating, make sure it's in nighttime mode. If you are watching TV or using your laptop or iPhone, you know, the closer it is to your face, the more light that you're going to get, and the further away it is, the better. And so practicing some technology distancing can be good. Also, just I'll say something else to that contrast makes a big a difference too. So if you have a pitch black room and you have a bright white light on this small little phone right in front of your face, that's going to impact you a lot more than if you have some ambiance, like some lights on and some soft lighting, and the contrast is a little bit less then, and it's not going to be as jarring. But you know, technology is not all bad. There's a lot of really great sleep technology out there. There's sleep apps. So, you know, I tell my young folks to use your technology for sleep. Download a relaxation app or white noise or rainfalls or nature sounds. Sometimes I do that. It helps with sleep. And so we want to be able to use our technology to our advantage these days, rather than just tell them, you know, don't use your technology. If they're going to use it for something good.
Wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, Dr. David, I think we're going to go ahead and conclude. But everyone, if your questions did not get answered, we will do all we can to get some answers back to you, and feel free to email us as well. We'll be sending you a survey tomorrow, and you can type them into that survey. Dr. David, thank you so much. I think we might need another in the future with you, but great hour of science, and Corey, as always, great job with the question. As we mentioned at the beginning of the program, we have a Science Cafe on Tuesday evening that is about a new COVID prevalence study, and it's going to be pretty interesting. And we hope that you'll join us that night. We'll be sending you some information about our future Science Cafes as well. And as always from UT Southwestern, we cannot emphasize enough, please wear your masks. We have to stop COVID from spreading, and this is me personally just imploring you to wear your masks. UT Southwestern scientists also back that up. So share that with all your friends who may think it's not important. Maintain physical distance between you and other people of 6 feet or more. And unless you have to be somewhere, please stay at home, watch Netflix, hang out outside, catch up on your rest. If you have any other questions about COVID, of course, you can always go to your local public health authority or go to utsouthwestern.edu/COVID-19. And with that, we are adjourned. We wish you good health and good spirits, and we will see you next time. Thank you.